Our second reading today comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, verses 1, and then and I want to read verses 1 through 14. So if you have a pew Bible with you, I invite you to join in reading along with me as I read it out loud. Luke here has been telling of Jesus' travels as he heads toward Jerusalem, and then the lessons that he gives and the healings that he does in Jerusalem. And all along the way, as he's running into people with disabilities or with poverty or with something, illnesses or something, people are always asking him, well, what did the parents do? What did this person do in order to earn this disease or this poverty or this disability? And Jesus turns those conversations around, because it's not about relationship with God and with forgiveness and with hope. It's about relationship with one another in a game of one-upmanship. So here Jesus has been invited to the house of a Pharisee. Now we all remember that Pharisees, of course, are the leaders in the Jewish temple and in the Jewish community. They're very learned people, very learned people. They're the ones who interpret Moses' law and the judgments of that. And so here he is going to the home of a Pharisee. And they don't trust him very much, but he's on his way. On one occasion, Luke writes, on one occasion when Jesus was going to the house of a leader of the Pharisees to eat a meal on the Sabbath, they were watching him closely. Just then, in front of him, there was a man who had dropsy, and Jesus asked the lawyers and Pharisees, "Is it lawful to cure people on the Sabbath or not?" But they were silent. So Jesus took him and healed him and sent him away. Then he said to them, "If one of you has a child or an ox that has fallen into a well, will you not immediately pull it out on a Sabbath day?" And they couldn't reply to this. When Jesus noticed how the guests chose the places of honor, he told them a parable. "When you're invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not sit down at the place of honor in case someone more distinguished than you has been invited by your host. And the host who invited both of you may come and say to you, 'Give this person your place.' And then, in disgrace, you would start to take the lowest place. But when you are invited, go and sit down at the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he may say to you, 'Friend, move up higher.' Then you will be honored in the presence of all who sit at the table with you. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." Jesus said also to the one who had invited him, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends, or your brothers, or your relatives, or rich neighbors, in case they may invite you in return, and you'd be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." This is God's word for us.
Thanks be to God.